So I just finished watching the premiere episode of the supernatural spinoff, The Winchesters. But is it absolute trash? Let's talk about it. What's going on, guys? That guy right here, and I wanted to do kind of an open discussion with you guys about the premiere episode, the series premiere of the supernatural spinoff, The Winchesters, and give kind of my thoughts on it, my first impressions, the things that I liked, the things that I didn't like, and my overall view of where this show potentially could go and if it should have been made at all. And I wanted to do this video specifically because if you guys know anything about me, you know that Supernatural is one of my all-time favorite shows. I have watched this show since its beginning, since day one. And over 15 years, this show has gone, it has taken a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but I've stuck through it and really enjoyed the process throughout its 15-year life cycle. And I think it was a couple years ago, about 2 years ago, the show finally reached its end. After 15 years, they had decided that it was time to hang up the hat and move on, which, let's be honest, that show should have ended 5 seasons earlier. But we are where we are. I enjoyed every episode of the show, even if, in its last 5 years, a lot of it was kind of repetitive. I was excited to kind of, it was a bittersweet moment to see it come to its, its end, its conclusion after so long of being a part of this world and experiencing and growing with these characters, Sam and Dean Winchester. And as an audience, I think we all kind of felt the same thing when they were doing their last Comic-Con run, when they were, announcing their final season. We watched the final episodes. It was a lot of emotional times, but as all things, something, many things must come to an end at some point. And I think Supernatural, I think its ending was beautiful. I think it was well done. And I think it kind of closed the chapter on what had been a very, very long journey. Now, fast forwarding from then, we find out that Jensen Ackles and his wife, I think Danielle Ackles, were planning on revitalizing and reviving the show in the form of a prequel, which was The Winchesters. And here we are today. The Winchesters is officially out. The first thing I will say, I'll start things off on a positive note and say that it is nice to jump back into the world of Supernatural. Its iconic music, the iconic cars, I guess you could say the memorable characters, the iconic fashion, all of it. A lot of the things that the Supernatural fandom have come to know and love do exist within the first episode of this show. And I got to give him credit to that. You can obviously see that Jensen Ackles, had a lot to say or had a lot of say in this show. A lot of that classic Dean Winchester, Sam Winchester flair and life very much exists within this show. The classic car, all that stuff, like I said, is very much here. And I enjoyed that. It felt like coming home in a way. Even within the first couple seconds of the premiere episode, you see them do the very trademark hand slicing thing to draw blood, to open a gate and all that kind of stuff. The classic stuff that we've come to really enjoy about the series. So in that realm, that being there and having that moment specifically within the first couple seconds, within the first minute of the episode, definitely felt like coming home. And I will say that throughout the episode, you get a lot of those Easter egg moments. You get a lot of those little moments that not only plug to previous expansions of the series, previous spin-offs that they were going to do. I think there was one called the Wayward Sisters that they were planning on doing but never got greenlit. And, they obviously point to that a little bit. And, that was nice. The Easter eggs that they point to, talking about the family business, like you start to see it all come into play. And I think that was really well done. Great placement for some of these memorable moments, because obviously many of the people who are watching this are likely, very familiar with the Supernatural world and the lore. And so to throw in those little nuggets of like, hey, we see you, welcome back, is really nice. And I think for me, that is really where it starts and ends. So I'm assuming most people who are watching this video likely know about Supernatural, know what Supernatural is about. But just to give you a quick rundown, this show, The Winchesters, is set to be a prequel about the love story between John and Mary Winchester, who are both the parents who eventually will have Sam and Dean Winchester. And obviously, if you don't know, Sam and Dean Winchester are the main characters of Supernatural. So with that all out of the way, the story of Supernatural begins with the death of Mary by a very mysterious demon, which inevitably spurs John Winchester, who is the father, the guy we're seeing in this show, who will eventually go on this hunt to hunt down the yellow-eyed demon that kills his wife, and Dean Winchester inevitably kind of follows in that suit a little bit. But I think this kind of segues into the bad of this series, and the thing that kind of really strikes a chord with me and a lot of the supernatural community is the fact that the story and the trailer, and even watching the first episode, you kind of get the sense that they are going away from the canon of 15 years of lore that had been built within the supernatural universe in an effort for this prequel. And what I mean by that is that the supernatural show over 15 years continues to kind of reiterate the idea that John Winchester had no idea who Mary was, her real life, that she was a hunter, until after she dies, which is what, like I said, spurs him into this decision to go and be a hunter and hunt down this demon. And he's, obviously hunting down a bunch of demons while he's looking for his main objective, which is the Yellow Eyes. But he didn't know about any of this stuff beforehand. And that was kind of a big turn. That was a kind of a big point of contention for not only the character of John Winchester, but also for Sam and Dean, as they continue to learn about these things about their father, as they search for him that they didn't know before, that he never shared with them. So there's this moment of like distrust, but also later on in the show, they kind of come to understand why he made these choices, all, so on and so forth. But this show seems to be kind of going in a different direction. And I, was kind of looking for some interviews that could provide some clarification, because I'm sure a lot of people have brought this up that like, hey, this feels very different than what you explained in, what was explained in Supernatural for 15 years. Like, he didn't know about any of this stuff. This makes no sense. So executive producers, Robbie Thompson, Jensen, and Danielle Ackles all basically came out and said that this isn't a rewrite. It's not a reboot or a retelling, a reconfiguration of what was already known within Supernatural. But I guess through the narration, was also narrated by Jensen Ackles, you can kind of get the sense that there's a little bit more happening here than what meets the eye. And so what they, I guess, seemingly said in interviews is the first season of this show is very much a wait and see, where they are going to eventually tie in that portion. But I think the issue is that for a lot of people who are watching this show, who kind of know this lore, and that lore is very much ingrained inside their minds, I think there's a lot of confusion because of what you already have come to know about this series. And so I guess we're just going to have to wait and see where that is. And I think that provides a little bit more comfort, I think, for me, to know that they aren't trying to rewrite the ship. They're not trying to retell this story. They're very much going to stick with the lore and stick with the canon. It just hasn't happened yet. And so I do have an interesting theory behind that. And that theory is really that I think as they go on throughout this show, I think they're going to find themselves in a situation where maybe John gets hurt. Perhaps, Mary makes a decision that eventually spurs, maybe with a witch, because I do believe they're traveling with a witch now. And that kind of, we'll talk about the cast in a minute, the cast of characters that they have, but they are traveling with a witch. And so I think something's going to happen towards the end of this season that is going to spur the witch into action. And maybe my theory is that he gets hurt and she's going to save his life. But in order to do so, it potentially could cause memory wipe. Now, in the realm of Supernatural, and if you've watched the show, you very much know that nothing is off limits in this show, especially when it comes to magic. It's the same as watching The Flash and knowing that at any point a character could come back, homie could just go back into the past, and a character that was previously gone could come back. We've seen it in shows forever. And so I think when it comes to Supernatural, especially with dealing with magic, I think they could create a scenario in which he has to have his memory wiped, either to save her or to save himself in a dire situation that we probably won't see until the finale, possibly, of this entire show. I don't see this show going on for just one season. Obviously, that's still up for debate. It has not been ordered, I believe, for a season 2. But I think, they're going to find themselves in a situation, and it's going to require, it's going to result in some side effects or consequences that result in him losing his memory. And if that were to happen, that could explain a lot and still lead us right to where we are in season 1 of Supernatural, where he doesn't know any of this, but maybe she does. And as you know, if you watch Supernatural, Mary did have a lot of secrets about her secret life, about her family and things like that. So it very much could fall in line that he still doesn't know when this entire show, this prequel, is all said and done. And so in that regard, after reading that and hearing about that, I'm like, okay, I give him a little credit. You know, they aren't trying to rewrite the ship, and that's good, because initially it very much felt like this show did not make any sense. And so now I can go in and progress and watch it and feel a little bit more at ease that it's all going to come together. We just have to wait and see. And so, yeah, that's another big point. The next thing I want to talk about were the cast of characters. Now, if you watch Supernatural, you know that the story, while the show of Supernatural does introduce a host of new characters for us to learn and grow and come to love, it very much still focuses on the center point of the show being the two characters, Sam and Dean Winchester, saving people, hunting things while they try to rid the world of the greater darkness, whatever that may be, angels, demons, whatever. And this show kind of does the same thing, and you can very much see a very obvious love interest happening even within the first episode between Mary and John Winchester. But I think the thing that kind of takes me out of the interest of this show, of these characters, is the other folks that they added. They like I said, they brought a witch, I think, is going to be joining their ranks. And then they have these two other characters that I don't even remember their names. Why? Because I just don't give a damn about them. They were to me, so unnecessary, where like they could be other characters that maybe they came across, but they stay in their town and they eventually bump heads. You know, they're other hunters and they come to bump heads, run into each other throughout the course of the show. And that would have made sense. But it very much feels like they're tagging along. They are a part of this journey. They are core characters within this story. And I really feel like that's not only going to detract from us focusing on this love interest and how these two characters become who they are in Supernatural, but it also just felt like it was kind of messy in a way. Like they very much feel, I joked about this in my reaction for the episode. It very much felt like the Scooby Gang, where these two characters, you got Shaggy, you got Velma, you got Daphne. All they need is a dog at this point. They just need a dog. They even got the van. I don't know if that was mistakenly done or if that was intentional to be kind of an inside joke where it's like, oh, it's like Scooby and the gang. But I wasn't rocking with it. I wasn't rocking with it. I didn't like that part. I think if they had just kept it with the two, John and Mary, I think that would have made sense. But having all these added characters, I feel like it's just going to make for a very cheesy plot, because you've already seen in these two characters elements that just don't need to exist, humor that doesn't really need to be there. And you can very much see that this show, unlike Supernatural, because I will argue this forever, that Supernatural was very much a show more or less meant for adults. And that progressed as the show went on. It just the show matured as the seasons went on. But you see it in this show that it very much feels kind of teeny bopper in a way. Like it has that CW flair where it's very much leaning towards a younger demographic with the love interest, with the corny humor. And that element really continued to take me out of the first episode, where it didn't really feel like Supernatural. The certain items and certain plot points and certain elements were kind of mentioned or placed in a way that just did not feel organic. It felt very forced. Even the pacing of the story itself felt very accelerated. Within the first couple of minutes of the show, they were introducing lore and characters that took us years to find out about, angels and demons and all this stuff. And that to me was very unexpected. I did not like that point, and that's all I'll say about it. That part. And if that continues, I think it's going to continue to draw people away from the show. But yeah, the whole Scooby Gang element, not a fan. So my overall impressions of this show, I think I think if you're watching this show or you're going to watch this show, I definitely recommend going into it with an open mind. Knowing that what you know about Supernatural, I guess this show is planning on getting there. It's driving towards that force, and towards that lore. So I guess you have to go into it with an open mind and know that some of these elements from what you know in Supernatural, when you're watching this, may not make sense, but it will eventually get there. But I will say that this show, from the first episode, I don't hate it. I think it's nice to come back to some of those supernatural elements and come back to that world and some of the things that we've come to know and love about Supernatural. But it's definitely going to be a different show. It's definitely going to be a different show. And while I would recommend Supernatural for just about everybody, I don't know if I can necessarily recommend this show for everyone. It very much, like I said, has that CW feeling to it, which is not necessarily a good thing. And I guess we're just going to have to, I'm very much in the mindset of I'm just going to wait and see. I think I'm going to give the first season, unless something just absolutely cringe happens within the next couple episodes. I think I'm going to give this first season a chance, and I'm going to continue to watch it, and I'll continue to give you guys my insights to what I feel about the first, season of the show as the episodes go, progress, if you guys want that. But yeah, I definitely have my concerns. One thing I will say that I really enjoyed about this episode was just having Jensen Ackles show up at the very end, and having him narrate, which I'm hoping he narrates most of the episodes. But yeah, having him be a narrator for this show was very nice. I did enjoy that. It was a nice kind of little nod, especially from the emotional context of the last season of Supernatural. It was just nice to see Jensen Ackles, Dean Winchester, come back for a little slight cameo. I don't know if this was a one-off thing, but I guess we're gonna have to see. I'm very interested to see episode 2 to see if he's still narrating, or if that was just something that was meant for this very first episode, and then the new cast of characters are gonna kind of take it from there. But we'll see. But I will say I really enjoyed that. But it does make me a little bitter, knowing that Jensen Ackles never really told Jared Padalecki about this show. And so I don't really know, if he's going to be in it at any point. I really would have liked him to. I think he should be in it. 15 years, he's very much a critical part of this show. And I would love to see him in it in some capacity. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I don't know when Dean Winchester is writing about and telling this tale. I don't know if it's after the events of Supernatural or if it's just that part kind of confused me. I wasn't sure when all of that was happening, but I guess we'll see how the show plays out, and as they progress. But for the most part, I liked it enough to give it a chance, but I'm not necessarily sold on it. I'd say my overall rating for this show, based on what I saw, I'd give it about a 7 out of 10. 6.5 to 7 out of 10. Whereas there were elements that I really liked. I liked the minor Easter eggs that they brought into the first episode for the Supernatural fandom. But I do think that the episode itself struggled to kind of create its own identity outside of nostalgia. And I think that that's something that it's really going to have to do really quickly in order to create its own world and its own universe and give people a reason to care about these characters. Because we cared about Mary and John Winchester from Supernatural, but I think given that these are obviously new actors and it's a new story that they're telling, I think they're really going to have to give us a reason to rally behind these guys. And so I guess that's yet to be determined, but hopefully they do. So I'd say I'll leave it at around a 7 out of 10. It was okay. Not good, not great, but it also wasn't awful to the point where I would never watch it again. I think it's just nice to be in the Supernatural world, and I'm curious to see what they do with it going forward. But let me know what you guys think of the episode. What were your general opinions? Did you go into it with high hopes? Were you disappointed in what you saw, or are you gonna give it a chance? I'm looking forward to seeing your comments down in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy, as it very much helps out the channel. I very much appreciate it. And subscribe if you're new here, because we got a lot more reviews, news, discussions, and episode reactions coming your way each and every week. So I'd love to have you guys be part of the family. But until then, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. My name is That Guy Rye, and